in order for Syria to free itself from the terrible, terrible Al-Jolani regime and become some kind of democracy, or at least to one degree or to another, even as it was during the time of Bashar Assad, I have to tell the history of the Israeli-Syrian conflict in brief. First of all, Hafiz Assad was the first Syrian leader to express his will to make some kind of a peace, some kind of a settlement with Israel, as well as he was the first leader to ease and to actually abolish the restrictions on Jews in Syria, and eventually the remaining restriction on immigration from Syria was also abolished. Before Hafiz Assad, Israelis, whether soldiers or citizens, were either abducted to Syria or tempted to convince to cross the border with Syria and ended up in the Palmyra prison, terrible prison, which Bashar Assad closed. Yes, he abolished that prison. Bashar Assad also abolished the Mazze prison. But yes, Israeli soldiers, prisoners of war, were in the Mazze prison. They were still tortured under Hafiz Assad. I mean, most Israeli prisoners of war became prisoners of war during Hafiz Assad, during the Yom Kippur War, especially. They were released after a few months. There were Israeli prisoners of war in 1982. They were released after about 2 years. But before Assad, Israeli prisoners spent years upon years in prison. The last Israeli prisoners who were released from the Palmyra prison were released after the 6-Day War. There were Druze prisoners, not so much known. There was the famous prisoner exchange in 1963 and then in 1966. But after the 6-Day War in 1967, more prisoners were exchanged. Yes, and Bashar Assad closed the prison in Mazze and freed the prisoners, and closed the prison in Palmyra, and freed its prisoners. And Al-Jolani's regime is terrible. It commits genocide against minorities. Thanks.